Chapter 6 Fortnite is already feeling like a brand new game, which is great because we definitely needed that after Chapter 5. Season 1 has officially concluded, which means that I can rank it in full. Was it good? Was it bad? That's what we're going to find out. But before we get into the video, I just want to say, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and of course, use code Brivy in the item shop. Anyways, love you. Enjoy the video. Chapter 6 Season 1. It started off hot. New map, tons of new biomes, new movement mechanics, new features, new weapons, new items. All was fine and dandy. It really was. The first part of the season was really good because there were enough new things in the game to keep it fresh for a while, and the gameplay was actually really good and problem-free for the most part. The movement mechanics were super cool, and none of them really got in my way. I know some people kind of struggle with the new movement mechanics, that is, using them by accident, but I don't really think I ever had that problem. The movement mechanics were very smooth and flowy, and it really fit the theme and vibe of the season. Then there were sprites. I love these little guys. I think this is the first time I haven't absolutely despised a creature that Epic added to the game. The blue ones healed you, and the white ones gave you the little movement wind things, kind of like a launch pad. You could also return them to the shrines and get good loot. So it actually made sprites extremely practical. You could carry one in your inventory, and if you needed loot, you could return it to the shrine and also get the sprite back afterward. I love it. Then we got boons, which are really close to augments. Now, I've been asking for augments to come back in the game forever, and these are pretty dang close, which is great. There were 4 of these in total: wind, fire, water, and void, each of them giving you different abilities. These were not super common in general, but if you knew where to go and went to the right spots, you could find these pretty easily. The abilities weren't super OP like a medallion, but they helped you out during the game. You know, the more I talk about these, the more I realize these are exactly like augments, except you're just not guaranteed to get them. I really like boons. And then, of course, we got all the new weapons. Both the ARs were really good, and both the SMGs were pretty good as well. The Veiled Precision was definitely way better, but they were both usable. And Hit Scan was back, which made all these weapons really good. The shotguns were all good except the Twin Fire. It sucks. I'm glad Epic learned their lesson with auto shotguns. I just wish they could find the median. And the Oni shotgun actually isn't too bad, but it only has 2 bullets. I see a lot of people hate on it, but it's actually usable. It's got that same problem that like the Ranger shotgun and the double barrel have. It's a good shotgun, but if you're at any sort of like disadvantage numbers wise in a fight, you probably aren't going to be able to win it carrying these shotguns. And of course, Epic added some old weapons back to the game, you know, toward the end of the season and midway through, such as the railgun, the lock-on pistol, hunting rifle, ranger AR, explosive repeater rifle, and the kinetic blade. Pretty good for the most part. Also, we had all the mythic weapons and medallions, which there actually weren't too many of. There were only 2 medallions for a large part of the season, and only a few mythics as well. Now, of course, if you defeated the roaming Shogun boss, you could earn a random mythic weapon, but those didn't quite hit as hard as the mythic SMG or the fire mask. There were also 2 mythic movement items with the Typhoon blade and the Oni mask. Those were both very powerful and valuable for movement as well as combat. And since I mentioned it, let's talk about the Void Oni mask. This is honestly probably one of the best movement items they've added in a minute. It's basically just a portal launcher. You can launch your portal ahead and teleport to it if you choose. It does have a cooldown, so you can't spam it, and it only has like 15 uses. Unless, of course, you get the mythic and it has 50. This is a fantastic movement item, and honestly, I can't believe they didn't think of this sooner. And then we got the fire mask. Honestly, I thought this was going to be a lot more of an issue than it actually was. At the beginning, I was like, oh, this is going to be broken. But it actually wasn't. No one really used the fire mask. The charges kind of traveled too slow, so the bad casual players realized it wasn't very good, and good players obviously are not going to want to use something that slow. So it honestly wasn't too big of an issue. I think it's pretty cool though. And of course, the map and all its new locations and biomes kept us exploring all the secrets and crevices it had to offer. Seaport City is an instantly classic POI, and of course there are several others for me. Then came the Godzilla update. This was the big collab this season, and honestly, it was pretty cool. Shining Span and Hopeful Heights both had changes made to the POI as an effect of the Godzilla update, and how it worked was Godzilla would spawn in randomly during certain games, and you could try to kill him and take his place. I think at one point it was every game he spawned in. I could be wrong about that. He would also drop a medallion that granted you little boost movements, kind of like the green skull controls from Chapter 5. This was a pretty big update, and it definitely spiced each game up. But it wasn't super noticeable all the time, which is a good thing. I think collabs should be a part of the game, but be minor enough to where it doesn't feel like it's being shoved down your throat. And Epic did a great job with that for this collab. Now, I wouldn't be making this video if this season were all cupcakes and rainbows. There were some definite issues. Firstly, as much as I love this map, I do think it's too big. If you get into a lobby that dies pretty fast in the first 2 or 3 minutes, you're going to have a very boring game, which I think is part of the reason why BR fell kind of slow this season, but I'll save that for another time. Now, I'm not going to harp on the map too much because, one, I like it, and also because it's impossible to predict how fast lobbies are going to die with every aspect that there is, you know, bots and every other occurrence that happens during a BR game. Another issue is the Hollow Twister AR and Veiled Precision SMG. Now, I'm all for hit scan being back in the game, don't get it twisted, but I think this season really cemented the fact that the red dot sighted weapons and hit scan are really good. A little too good. I wouldn't say overpowered, and with that being said, it was very easy to beam people and get beamed by both of these weapons. Now, honestly, I don't really think this is a problem per se. I just think it was annoying at times. I mean, aiming is a pretty skilled mechanic, so I was okay with getting beamed because, one, I could just follow suit and beam the person back, and two, it's a skilled mechanic, so I'm not mad about it. It's kind of in my control whether I die from that beam because I can, you know, build or run and find cover. I'm okay with dying to one of these guns because I know it was just good aim by the person that killed me. In other words, I died to a kind of skilled player, and that's okay. Now, other things this season I can't say the same about, like the Typhoon blade. I mean, you guys already know what I'm going to say. And before I complain about this thing for a while, I will say it's a good movement item. The fact that it has a whole different set of movement mechanics while holding the blade is really cool. It was super smooth, like flowy movement. It's just the attack that I have an issue with. So I know that you guys know how broken this thing is, but let me put it in further perspective for you. The attack for the Typhoon blade has no numerical cooldown, and basically no cooldown at all. There was like a split second that it had to regroup after all that slashing, but it would get right back to it in the blink of an eye, pretty much. So guns have a fire rate and also have to reload. If you were in a close range in-your-face fight with this thing and you were up against it while you were using a gun, you theoretically would lose every time. Because one, you have to reload your guns, and you can say, oh, well, what if the weapons are reloaded? I mean, you shouldn't miss a whole clip. Your aim is weird because you're getting thrown around by this thing really weirdly, so you're missing a lot of shots unless you can somehow just get lucky and hit a bunch of them even while you're getting pushed around. Also, this thing does way more damage than any gun could, which is why players that use this thing would wait until you were right in their face and then use it. Now, obviously, you can't slice somebody with this thing from range, so it was balanced on paper, but almost every fight you take ends up being up close at some point. And it's crazy because in the beginning, nobody really used the attack feature on this thing. I think bad players figured out how good it was and then started abusing it. Now, I know I paint this picture that like bad casual players are the bad guys, but I really don't blame you guys. I blame Epic for constantly spoon-feeding these brain-dead weapons so that you don't have to get better at the game, which causes you to use only the weapons that give you an advantage. And I don't blame you, I would do the same thing. Epic is entirely to blame, because Epic has done the math, they looked at the stats, it's their game. A gun is no match for the Typhoon blade up close, they know that, they just add it anyway to help out bad players. And unfortunately, Epic's weird obsession with these broken melee weapons has carried over to our current season. But that's enough about the blade. Sorry, I had to rant a little bit. Other than those few things, I really don't think there were any other major issues this season. So with all that being said, this was a good season. Cool new features, really good starting map, good collab, good starting weapon meta, cool movement items. This was just a good season across the board, pretty much. And it felt very nice to have pretty good gameplay in a new chapter. I think the season definitely got boring, but every season one has that problem. And speaking of season ones, I think this season holds a pretty good reputation amongst other season ones, and that's a pretty high compliment because I think that most season ones have been really good. If I had to give this season a score from 1 to 10, I'd give it like a 7.9. Really solid season. Let me know what you thought about it. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate all your guys' support. You guys are amazing. The season 2 review should be out pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, just be sure to like this video, subscribe, use code Brivy in the item shop. And anyways, Jesus loves you, I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.